It was winter. The air was ice, the land was unforgiving, and the journey ahead stretched over 1,200 miles. Mothers carried their dying children in their arms. Elderly men collapsed in the snow, too weak to move forward. Soldiers on horseback barked orders. These were the Cherokee people, once sovereign in their own land, now prisoners of a government that had betrayed them. This is the story of the Trail of Tears, a tragic event that affected the Cherokee, Creek, Seminole, Chickasaw, and Choctaw nations. In the early 19th century, the United States was expanding rapidly. Land hunger, gold discoveries, and the drive for economic growth made one thing clear. White settlers wanted native lands, and one man was determined to give it to them: President Andrew Jackson. Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act of 1830, a law that authorized the U.S. government to remove Native American tribes from their ancestral lands in the southeastern United States. In exchange, they were promised land in the West, what is now Oklahoma. On paper, it was voluntary. In reality, it was anything but. The Cherokee Nation fought back. They took their case to the Supreme Court in the case of Worcester versus Georgia, 1832, where Chief Justice John Marshall ruled in their favor. The Cherokee had a right to their land, but Jackson ignored the ruling, reportedly saying, "John Marshall has made his decision. Now let him enforce it." In 1838, under orders from President Martin Van Buren, 16,000 Cherokee men, women, and children were forcibly removed from their homes. Herded into stockades like cattle, they were given little food, no proper clothing, and no medical care. When the march began, it became clear this was not a relocation. It was a death sentence. The Trail of Tears was a 1,200-mile forced march across harsh terrain. The Cherokee were given little food and suffered from disease, starvation, and exposure. Along the way, families watched their loved ones die before their eyes. Many were buried in shallow, unmarked graves, left behind as the march continued. By the time they reached their new home in Indian Territory, an estimated 4,000 to 8,000 Cherokee had died, nearly 1/4 of their entire population. Not all native tribes went quietly. The Seminoles in Florida waged a brutal war against U.S. forces. The Second Seminole War, 1835 to 1842, became the longest and most expensive Native American conflict in U.S. history. But even they were eventually forced to flee. Meanwhile, the Cherokee had split into factions. Some, like Chief John Ross, fought for their land through diplomacy. Others, like Major Ridge, signed the Treaty of New Echota in 1835, believing resistance was futile. This decision led to internal conflict, and Ridge was later assassinated by fellow Cherokee for what they saw as betrayal. The Trail of Tears was one of the darkest stains on America's history. But why is it so often overlooked? The United States has long framed its history through the lens of manifest destiny, the idea that it was the nation's fate to expand across the continent. This narrative often ignored the cost: the destruction of indigenous cultures, the loss of entire nations, and the blood that paved the way for expansion. In 2009, the US Congress issued a formal apology for the Trail of Tears. But for many Native Americans, an apology does not erase the pain. The scars remain. The history cannot be undone. Despite everything, the Cherokee Nation endures. Their language, traditions, and identity live on. What was meant to destroy them only made them stronger. The Trail of Tears is not just Native American history, it is American history, and it must never be forgotten. If you found this discussion meaningful, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share it with others. Spreading awareness about the Trail of Tears and its significance helps ensure that these stories are not forgotten. Together, we can contribute to a more informed and compassionate dialogue about our shared history and the path toward a more equitable future for all. Thank you for watching.